Hello everyone, this video we're going to discuss if providing gigabit bandwidth is necessary for our IP camera system. So you can see right here, I have a few devices here. These are all different kind of devices which have various bandwidth provided. And this one right here is our regular PoE switch. This PoE switch can upload to 100 megabits per second of data, and then it has 8 ports. So it can connect to a lot of devices and also process that much data. This is a 5 megapixel IP camera. The resolution will be requiring 10 megabits per second process speed to send all the images back. So if this is like 10 megabits per second and we have 8 ports on this PoE switch, so a simple calculation, usually the average network speed would be needed up to 80 megabits per second. That's how much it would use to have a very thorough and smooth connection back to our PoE switch. Then its uplink port, will send the data to an NVR or save it down on a hard drive. So that is only when one user is accessing through an uplink port all the data from 8 cameras at the same time. So imagine you have 2 or 3 or even 4 users. In that case, we're going to have to multiply 80 by the number of users who are accessing it. So if we have more bandwidth withholded in our device, this will give us the ability to allow more users to access it without causing some lagging, or maybe too many users will cause the whole bandwidth to not be able to withhold that much data processing. Now, many people might wonder, well, a lot of people, when they go and set up their internet, they only are provided with like around 500 megabits per second. What if they want to go up to gigabit bandwidth? Well, when we're using a security system, usually it's like a closed circuit. All the network, the transmissions will be withholded in our local internet access network. And in this case, we can use like an extender or other devices to provide a gigabit network for only our IP cameras. So when they transmit their data back to our database, it will run in a gigabit bandwidth speed. So their transmission will be fast. But when we're accessing the outside network, that will be when we're using the 500 megabits per second. So if it's like a local network, we can use extenders to raise the bandwidth up to a gigabit. But if we're accessing the outside network, then it's going to be whatever bandwidth you get from your internet provider. So as I said, when we use like an extender, we can raise our bandwidth up to 1,000 gigabits per second. And that is very good because if we have multiple cameras, say up to 20 or 30 cameras, and those are all like the 5 megapixel cameras, that would be like a total of 200 or 300 megapixels for us to process. In that case, the 200, 300 megabits per second would be only for one user. If we have multiple users accessing the network at that time, it has to be multiplied by the number of users. So if like 5 users, I'll be going over gigabit bandwidth, 1,000 megabits per second, which would be like almost 2,000 megabits per second, 2 gigabits per second. So in this case, we have an injector like this. This is a 10 gigabit PoE injector. This can give us more bandwidth in storage. So you can see like when it's buffering or we have a spike of a lot of people accessing our system at the same time, it would help us process that much data since it has a strong storage of bandwidth. And this is usually good to join with a 10 gigabit wireless access point. If you're in a large company or a building and you need a lot of access points for our, people inside the building, you need to access the internet wirelessly, the access point would be processing like hundreds of data of users simultaneously. A 10 gigabit bandwidth PoE injector would help us process that much data. And of course, when we're planning to extend our network, we have to make sure the bandwidth all matches, because if you say you have 1,000 megabits per second network speed and you're using 100 megabits per second extenders, then sorry, you might not be able to reach that speed when you're using 100 megabits per second. All right, that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to leave them at the section below. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.